Ukraine's rout of Russian forces this weekend is creating a new kind of political challenge for President Vladimir Putin. It undercuts the image of Putin being a competent man, a strong man, an image that he has worked for at least 2 decades to build up. The one thing that any strong man cannot survive is a defeat on the battlefield, or at least a perception of defeat. Over the weekend, the Russian military continued to retreat from positions in northeastern Ukraine, particularly around the city of Kharkiv, which is the second biggest in Ukraine. Now, these are parts which Russia had occupied for months. In fact, state television news reports in Russia referred to the retreat as a carefully planned regrouping operation. In fact, it praised the heroism and the professionalism of Russian troops. But the upbeat message did very little to dampen the anger among the supporters of war over this retreat, as well as the overall handling by the Kremlin of the war itself. And it also hardly obscured the bind that Putin finds himself in now. Basically, Vladimir Putin is presiding over a 6-month war against an increasingly energized enemy and a Russian population that does not appear to be prepared for the kind of sacrifices that come with an escalating conflict. On Crux DeCode, could the recent reverses in the war cost Vladimir Putin and Russia dearly? How does the Russian military regroup from here and take back some of those areas? And most importantly, can they retake the areas which they have lost? And also, how do they seize the momentum which right now seems to be firmly with Ukraine? Strength is the only source of Putin's legitimacy, and in a situation in which it turns out that he has no strength, then his legitimacy will start dropping. And this is true for all dictators, not just for Putin. Whether it is Mao or Kim or Saddam Hussein, none of whom could survive politically after a defeat on the battlefield. As Ukraine presses its advantages, seizing towns and territory, Vladimir Putin is escalating the brutality of his campaign, a concession that he's making to the pro-war voices on Russian television as well as social media. Missile strikes have happened on infrastructure all across eastern and central Ukraine, leading to large parts of the country being plunged into darkness. But it was unclear so far how much Russia is going to go, or how far Russia is going to go with its cyber, chemical, and nuclear arsenals to try and break Ukraine's momentum. Because one thing became apparent over the weekend, that the scale of the battlefield setback is becoming clearer, and there is more and more evidence that is emerging of the complete disarray inside Russia's ruling class. Ramzan Kadyrov, who's the strongman of the Chechen region in southern Russia and who sent thousands of his own troops to Ukraine, has accused the Russian military of making mistakes and failing to explain the retreat to the public. Sergei Mironov, who's the leader of a pro-Putin party in parliament, criticized the Russian authorities for celebrating Moscow's annual City Day this weekend, just when the retreat was happening. He posted this on Twitter, and I quote, "It cannot be and it should not be that our guys are dying today and we are pretending that nothing is happening. Because of some mistakes unknown to us, control over political processes is being lost." Unquote. Now, this is a pro-Kremlin analyst who often appears on state television. That's not all. Sergei Markov has said on social media, and again I quote, "I guarantee you that this confusion will not last long, but right now it is a mess." Unquote. The fundamental problem, analysts say, is that Putin has a penchant for misleading his own people, and that is finally catching up with him. The reality of the Russian setback is poking holes in the Kremlin's message that the Russian army is somehow undefeatable. The message has also been that Ukraine is riddled with corruption and cowardice, and Putin is a brilliant geopolitical strategist. It was just last week that Putin had declared that Russia had not lost anything as a result of this war, an assertion which is at odds with the Western estimates of tens of thousands of Russian casualties. For now, the war supporters have mainly directed their anger over the weekend setbacks at bureaucrats who are sitting in Moscow or at the military leadership. But an early indication that frustration could damage Putin's own prestige came on the Telegram social network. This was after Moscow went ahead with a grand fireworks display over the weekend to mark the 875th anniversary of the founding of the city of Moscow. This was almost like a slap in the face to the Russian military on perhaps the most humiliating day for Russia since this invasion began 6 months ago. The strategy to describe the war as a special military operation that need not affect the daily lives of millions of Russians relied on a certain expectation. And that expectation was that Russia would quickly win this war within a matter of weeks. That has not come to pass. With setback after setback, the fact that things are not going according to plan is becoming increasingly difficult to hide. The Kremlin, in principle, based its entire policy on the idea that there can be no defeats. They did not prepare for the fact that there could be a collision with this second parallel world. There were signs after the reverses in Ukraine that the Kremlin was responding to the criticism that it's not being honest with the public about the extent of the recent setbacks. On the main weekly news shows on state television, one of the presenters, Dmitry Kiselyov, described the last week as probably the most difficult one since the start of the war. Under the onslaught of superior enemy forces, the Allied forces were forced to leave the previously liberated settlements. In fact, Mr. Kiselyov said that, and he referred to Russia's alliance with Kremlin-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine, saying it was a rare acknowledgement on the airwaves of what pro-Russian military bloggers have been warning about for weeks now. With the Kremlin appearing determined to avoid a nationwide draft to increase the ranks of its army, Russia's forces are outnumbered in many parts of the front lines. There were also signs that the Kremlin could be trying to escalate its military campaign because supporters of the war have wanted exactly that. A Russian strike knocked out power as well as water Sunday evening to much of the northeastern city of Kharkiv. The city's mayor, in fact, referred to the attack as an act of revenge. Now, how badly this weekend's battlefield setbacks hurt Vladimir Putin politically will depend most of all on his ability to reverse them. At the same time, he will continue to shelter Russians from the consequences of Western sanctions. This week, Vladimir Putin is expected to meet with President Xi Jinping of China at a regional summit in Uzbekistan, seeking to expand a critical relationship for Russia as it pursues economic partners outside of the West. A lot for Putin will ride on how successful that meeting will be.